All right, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to session 2.3 of my FileMaker for Stage Lighting series. Welcome back for those of you who have been with me from the beginning. I know there's a couple of you there. If this is your first video, I would highly recommend you go back and start at the beginning and don't try to do this one with me live, because everything we're going to be doing today is a direct continuation of stuff we've done in the past. And as always, go ahead and throw anything in the chat that you might have, any issues, questions, concerns, anything like that, keeping in mind there is a slight delay, but I will get to that as soon as possible. So today's session is going to be focused on mostly creating some actual lighting paperwork reports. So we're going to create an instrument schedule, a channel hookup, a color frame count sheet, as well as a Gobo sheet. Obviously, you could take those and you could expand those into all kinds of different paperwork, but those are the four that we're going to cover today, just to kind of give you some quick and easy ways to make other things happen. Once that's done, we're going to create a script that will make PDFs of those. We're going to make a script that automatically exports all of your paperwork to a single folder on your computer, which is just my dream come true. And then finally, we'll wrap up with a script that will allow us to automatically update things like Gobo names or position names in our instrument records if we do make a change, kind of making sweeping changes to our entire show. So that's on the docket for today. A lot of information, and I'll try to make it as clear as possible. Real quick, I guess the only other thing to point out for previous sessions, if there is any kind of complex script or calculation that I have done, I have been throwing those up on the GitHub. So for each session, you can go in, and if you couldn't quite make it out on the screen what it was, you could go to the GitHub and find that calculation. Okay, let's jump right in. So the only printed report we have come up with so far is this work notes printed list report that we have. Is my screen cut off? It looks like it might be cut off. Oh, no, I guess not. So we have this printed, the work notes report that we made before. So since we already have some formatting things made for this, I'm going to use this as the basis for my other paperwork that I'm going to create, rather than creating a brand new report from the beginning. So I'm going to come into my layout manager, Command-Shift-L, or File, Manage Layouts. And with that selected, I'm just going to duplicate it. I'm going to move it up out of the work notes folder. And let's call this, how about instrument schedule? And then we want to make sure we're looking at records from our instrument table. So instrument schedule, show records from instrument table. Leave all the other options the same. And I'm going to open that up. And just for clarity's sake, I'm going to close this other window. I was working on the key for this earlier, and I accidentally was editing the wrong window the whole time, and I got very confused as to why things weren't working. So now you see I've got the same layout. Of course, it's empty because I don't have any work notes on my instrument schedule layout, or excuse me, table. So I'm going to come in here and zoom in a little bit and just start editing some of these things. So most of this stuff I don't need. Really, just keep a couple of these fields. Don't need this box. Let me change this over to instrument schedule. And of course, it's too small. For the purposes of what we're doing today, I'm just putting the title at the top. We could, if we wanted to, we could set that title each time using a global variable. I'm going to leave that there in case we decide we want it for something else later on down the road. But for now, I'm just going to print instrument schedule there. And let's think about this. So how do we normally organize an instrument schedule? Instrument schedule is typically laid out by position and then unit number. So within my actual body records here, the first thing I probably want to see is going to be that unit number. So I'm going to choose that field to be unit number. And you might be thinking, okay, but what about the position field? I'm going to get to that in 1 second. Fix this text box so it's centered. Good. Get this as far over as possible. We have a lot of information we want to try to fit on here. Now, if you remember correctly, we did make that original report, that work note report we had in landscape orientation on a 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. So I'm going to use that same landscape orientation for this because it allows us to get a whole lot of information across the way. I'll move this out of the way for now. So I've got unit, then probably the next most important thing to see after that on an instrument schedule is going to be channel. channel. And I'll fix this alignment issue and stuff in a second. Unit channel. Whoops. And then probably a dimmer would be next. Again, to duplicate these fields, you can copy paste them. I am just coming in basically and highlighting them, holding down Option and dragging them over. Circuit. Now here's a good thing we should look at when it comes to our instrument record. So when we want to lay our circuit out here, as you know, we have two different circuit fields. We have a circuit name and we have a circuit number. So depends on how you lay out your circuits. Sometimes, I personally don't separate those things. For me, for circuit number, I just put a 1 through 6 or B1 through 6 or whatever it is. I like to have it in one field. But if you do separate it out, it can take up more real estate to go ahead and put two more columns here. So rather than using just one of those two, I'm going to actually come into my database manager in my instruments table, and I'm going to create a calculation field that is called circuit calc. And basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this field be one that automatically appends pulls together circuit name and circuit number. So now if you have, let's say, A in your circuit name and 2 in the circuit number, it's just going to give you a field that says A2, which could be super helpful. Again, depends on how you use use things in your solution. I'm going to make sure that's not stored. And I'm going to leave the calculation result as a number. Even though I have text in there, I want to be able to sort these things later on, maybe not on this layout, but maybe on a future layout. I want to sort them by the number and not necessarily by the letter. So I'm going to leave it like that for now. And then the other thing to keep in mind is you want to use the ampersand there. I don't want to use a plus sign because that would implies that we want to add those things together. The ampersand says we want to join those two fields together into the same field. So there we go, circuit calculation. And now that's just automatically happened for all the records in our show. I don't have to go in and update anything because it just calculates it in the background. I don't think we actually have circuits in this LightWrite file, so you won't see it, but you get the idea. Okay, and then we probably want an address field. And our address is probably going to be a little bit longer, so I'm going to make that field a little bit bigger. And I'm just going to call that DMX for now. What else do we need here? Okay, so we want, I don't need these. Next up would probably be type. Make that maybe that big or so. Next to type, we probably want our load. Really, this seems like it's kind of tedious and takes up some time, but it only really takes up time on the very first one we make, because when we go in and make the other paperwork we're going to make today, we're going to make duplicates of this instrument schedule and then just delete and change things around. So it's really this first initial piece of paperwork you make that is challenging. Purpose. What else now? Of course, we've got color. Doop, doop. Color, Gobo. Or template, however you want to, whatever you refer to them as. I went through a phase where I called them templates for a while, and then I went back to Gobo again. All right, and then accessory. I don't think there's any accessories in our show, but yeah, I might be forgetting something, but here we are. Okay, and of course that should be in caps like everything else. Okay, now for a quick alignment here, just to make sure these guys are all aligned, I'm going to come in here, and under my ruler tab, I'm going to align them at center. And then I'm going to actually resize these boxes as well to make sure that they're all kind of a uniform height. So this little button right here, it says resize to largest height or resize to smallest height. I'm going to do smallest height. And now I'm going to realign them one more time. And I'm actually going to anchor this text to the bottom of that field, which looks like because those boxes are so small, that didn't really matter. But that looks a lot better. Bring those down. And then these are all pretty much aligned, so I'm not going to worry about them. Now when I go back into browse mode, you see, okay, we've got all of our stuff here, but it looks like we've got a couple of question marks showing up. The question mark basically means that there's data in that field, but that the field or that the box itself isn't large enough to show that data. So I'm going to come back and I'm just going to make all of these a little bit bigger. And you get a little bit of a sense of this based on how many letters you see in your field name. So if it just says CH, that means I'm only going to be able to fit those 2 in there. So maybe, you know, 4, let's say, go for 4 digits there, maybe 3 digits on my dimmer. This is, again, going to be totally up to your particular situation. Do the same thing with circuit, make it a little bit bigger. Now when I go back into browse mode, okay, now I see everything. I don't really see any question marks anywhere. That's great. Okay, we want to probably add our color swatches here and probably a little Gobo image. So I'm just going to copy paste that color field. And then for what I'm mapping it to, I'm going to come back over to my color swatches table, and I'm going to use that swatch manual field. I'm going to put it right next to there. And then we could probably, you know, you have to play around with your formatting on this a little bit to make it all fit the way you want. But what you could probably do is maybe right align this and maybe left align this one, and have them kind of pop up right next to each other like that. So now when I come in here, and you know, you get the idea, like, you know, this is getting cut off a little bit. So you just have to play around with the formatting of how you want those to show up. So maybe I'll move the swatch over a little bit more. Something like that. And then let me check something real quick. If I make this field too small, yeah, if I make the field too small with that particular one, it just gets rid of that other, you know, you can see those 3 blocks are there, but it's only showing me the one. So maybe just do that. And then of course for Gobo, I'll do the same thing. You know, maybe not super handy to have a Gobo be that small, but just to show you that it's possible, we'll do that. And again, that's over on my Gobos field and Gobo image. And because those fields are related through that relationship, we don't have to do a portal or any kind of fanciness like that. We can just drop the field right in, which is pretty cool. And there we go. So this is all looking really great, but of course the big thing we're missing, Mike, this is an instrument schedule, why don't you have the position names on there? And that's what we're going to do next. So the position names, rather than being individually printed for every single record, we're going to actually print a summary part above each group of instruments that are associated with that position. So we did this a little bit back over with our work notes list. If we look at that, you know, we create, oh, I guess we did, I think we deleted it though. At some point we did it, I don't remember where we did that. Oh, here we go, we did it on our actual printed thing here, where we could, when we sorted by position, it showed us the position header, or sorted by purpose, it showed us that purpose header. So I'm going to do that same thing again, but I'm going to do that here on my instrument schedule. So I'm going to right click out here in the gray space, go to part setup, and I'm going to create a new part that is going to be a sub summary. And this is a sub summary when sorted by. Now you might be thinking, okay, well, I'm just going to choose position here. And you could do that for sure, but I actually don't want to do it on my instruments table. I'm going to do it on my positions table, and I'll show you why in just a second. So I'm going to choose, instead of instruments positions, I'm going to say positions table, position name. And then I want, I'm going to leave all these unchecked for now. I'm going to click OK, and I want it to print above the section that it summarizes. So I'm going to say print above. Great, so now you see right here, you've got this little section. It says sub-summary when sorted by position. And I'm just going to put that position name up here into that body, or into that part. So under field mapping for that, I want to make sure I go into my positions table, position name, and maybe I'll make it a little bit bigger. Something like that, make it nice and big. And probably left align it. And now when I come in and I go back into browse mode, of course it doesn't show up because I haven't actually sorted by that yet. If I now click on sort and I choose positions, position name, and then what, of course, we need a subsort underneath that would be the unit number. So position name, positions, position name, unit number, and sort, you'll see, boom, now that header is showing up and they're sorted in unit number order. Looks like I've got a couple that don't fit. Make this just a touch bigger. There we go. So pretty cool. Now, what you might notice right away is, wait a second, okay, this is great. It's in alphabetical order now, but as you know, we don't always want our instrument schedule to be in alphabetical order. Typically, at least in the US, we do our instrument schedules starting at the very farthest front of house position and then working all of our way up stage. So unless all of your positions just happen to be numbered or lettered that way, this isn't going to necessarily work for you. So I'll show you how we can fix that in 1 second. The other thing I want to look at is if we go into preview mode, which is going to show us what it actually looks like as a piece of paper, we notice a couple of things right away. Well, number one, the page margins are messed up. So I'm just going to change my page setup over to be landscape. Oh, there's everything. And now the other thing I notice is that I have some things where it's like splitting across pages. So like this is the third electric and just a single record from the fourth electric before it goes over to the fourth electric. This might be something that works for you depending on your paperwork style and how you like to work. For me, I typically try to do all of my instrument schedule stuff where there's a page per position. Because when you're thinking about it from an electrician standpoint, typically if you're working on, if I'm handing an electrician a packet of paperwork to go work on, typically I'm giving it to them on a position by position basis. I might say, okay, you and your team go work on the first electric. So I would rather give them a piece of paper or maybe 2 pieces of paper that just have the first electric on them and not everything else. So I'm going to come back into browse mode for a second here. I'm going to edit this layout. And under my part setup, I'm going to edit that sub-summary. And all I need to do is say put a page break before each occurrence. And now what it's going to do is basically anytime it's showing you a different set of data, it's going to give you a page break. So there's the first electric, second electric, third, so on and so forth. You get the idea. Now we still have the problem with them being not in alphabetical order, but at least now things fit. Things are, you can break up your paperwork into different page sizes. Okay. So the question of how do we get these positions to sort in an order that makes sense, that we can specify. So the answer to that, and this goes into why I had you sort by the records of the position table and not the instrument table, is that we can actually come in to our position table and we're going to add another field called sort order. And that's going to be a number field. And so now I can manually come into that position table and I can set the sort order starting with 1 and going up to whatever. I could use decimals, I can use any kind of number, and then edit this sorting a little bit on my instrument schedule and to sort using that sort order. So I use the same word in the same sentence a lot of times. So let's show you how that works just kind of live here. So I'm going to go back over to my positions table. And again, what I did is I just went into positions and I created a new number field called sort order. And I'm going to zoom out a little bit. And for now, I'm just going to change this load field over to that sort order since we didn't actually do any like nice formatting on this particular layout. And now if I come in here and let's say I just want to do it by electric, go electrics first. I can say 1, this would be probably 10, then 2, 2, 3, get the idea. And then I'm just going to put all these other ones way out of the way for now, just so they get out of the way. And now again, this kind of seems a little tedious to go in and put all this data in every time. I have a script in mind where it automatically inserts text into these fields. I thought about doing that with you today, but it's a little bit beyond the scope of kind of the basic lessons that we're trying to do right now. So I'm going to add that on to the end of chapter 2, kind of like I did with chapter 1. And again, what I'm doing right now is this 999 is just to get them out of the way for now so we don't have to worry about seeing them. What I really am going to be looking for is making sure that this number 10 electric pops down underneath the 9 electric when we actually print our report. So that'll be the thing to look out for later on. Okay, so now we have these associated with all of our positions. I'm going to come back into my instrument schedule layout. And I'm going to change a couple of quick things here. I'm going to change the sub-summary. So instead of being sorted by position name, I now want it to be a subsummary when it's sorted by position, or excuse me, by sort order. Don't have to change anything here because again, this refers to the related record of whatever these instruments are. So just because it's being sorted by the sort order doesn't mean I need to change that name or even show that sort order here on my screen. And then when I go back into browse mode and I perform my sort, I'm going to get rid of that position name, and instead I am going to sort by sort order. Sort order and then unit number. And here we go. Let's make sure it worked. There we go. 1 electric, 2 electric, 3 electric, 4 electric, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Perfect. And of course, everything else, because I put it in 999, you see like there's a lot of unit 1s, there's a lot of unit 2s, et cetera, et cetera. In your solution, I would recommend, obviously, you go in and you put actual sort IDs in for everything, but I wasn't going to waste your time with that today. Okay, so that works out really well. That's lovely. So that's pretty much it for our instrument schedule for now. Well, actually, no, we could do a couple more things because we have all that really interesting or that really useful information on our positions table, and it is linked to a relationship with all of our instrument records. I could actually come up in here and I could make, let's say I want to put unit count on here. I could say positions, units on position. Total units. I go back into browse mode. Oh, look at that. That's kind of cool. That's interesting. Something's weird with my 8 electric here. It looks like, oh, you know what? This is because we were messing around with stuff before when we were testing earlier in the unit. So that's why there's like duplicate unit numbers and stuff like that. So we can ignore that for now. But for the most part, this all pretty much matches up. 5th electric has 18 units. 4th electric has, looks like 25 units, et cetera, et cetera. So that works out pretty well. And I could even come in here then and say, all right, well, what about weight? I could say, you know, total net weight. And I think that it's going to say 0. Yeah, there's no weight in there for right now because when we did our last import, we got rid of all that weight information. But if I came and went back into my fixture types again and I started adding weights in for those things, some of you might already have these. When we did that import on Tuesday, it wiped all my stuff out. I'm just going to put them in real quick. I'm just going to say that every light in my show weighs 20 pounds, even though I know that's not true. So now I know when I come in here, if I, there we go, position weight. They're starting to show up there. So I can actually have the weight of my whole position. I can put the load. So you get the idea. Those related fields that we had before, I can actually put all that information in that subsummary part. So, you know, useful for some people, maybe not for others. When I go into preview mode now, I might look at this and say, okay, well, this is somewhat helpful to have. Maybe, you know, maybe I want to move these column headers to that subsummary. You could absolutely do that. Again, this is a personal preference thing. They're in my header right now. But yeah, maybe move them down into the subsummary just so that you don't have that gap. I'll make the subsummary a little bit bigger. I'll move these down. Something like that. And that's a little easier to read now, especially in preview mode, you know. So you spend some time getting it looking the way you want it to look. Great. So that's it. That is our instrument schedule in a nutshell. You can obviously print whatever you want in the header, you know, make it yours, make it work for you. Let's go ahead then and let's move on to our channel hookup. So most lighting paperwork is just the same information presented in different ways over and over and over again. So because of that, all I really need to do to create that channel hookup is I'm going to duplicate my instrument schedule layout. I'm going to call it a channel hookup. Open that up, and then of course I'm going to close my instrument schedule so that I don't accidentally edit the wrong thing. And now I'm just going to come in here and start editing these things. So to that question that just came in on the chat about what software this is FileMaker. I would highly recommend you go back and watch the beginning videos, or else none of this is going to make any sense to you at all. Okay, so I don't need this sub-summary anymore, because with a channel hookup, I really just need to see the individual instrument records. I really don't need to see, I don't need to have any kind of sub-summaries. So I'm just going to come in here and delete this sub-summary. And oops, before I do that, I should probably move these headers back up into these column headers back up into my header. Like so. Now I'll delete that part. And okay, so how do we need to reorganize this? I probably don't need information about the accessory in here. You know, what you put in your reports is up to you as far as what you actually need and what you don't need. I just want to make a little bit more room. So obviously the most important thing in a channel hookup is that we are sorting this data by channel number. So I'm going to move the channel number all the way over here to the left, maybe even make it bold. And then probably dimmer circuit DMX is the next important things. And then instrument type and load. And now maybe here I actually do want to have my my position show up on this report. So I could do that really quickly here. Great. Go back into browse mode. There they are. And then, of course, all I need to do is sort this by channel number. And there you go. You got a channel hookup. Pretty quick and easy channel hookup. Go into preview mode. There it is. That works out quite well. You could patch a show with that. Okay. So that's really it for the channel hookup. Next thing we'll move on to then is going to be our color report. Now this one's going to probably be the most complex one that we do. I'm going to close this window. But to get started, again, I'm just going to duplicate this channel hookup, and I'm going to call this a color cut sheet. Records from instruments. So color cut sheet is what I'm going to call this. I'm going to open that up. And once again, I am going to close our other one so I don't accidentally edit the wrong thing. And I'm going to come in here and I'm going to edit this layout. Okay, so this one's going to be a little bit more complex. We're going to start out just saying color cut report. And let's see, what do we need in that color cut report? We don't need to know the dimmer or the circuit, the DMX address. Typically, this is the piece of paperwork that I'm going to give to an electrician to go and start cutting all the gel that I need for my show. So really all I need is the channel number, maybe the instrument type. Really, I could leave the purpose and unit. That way, you know, I could also hand this to somebody to actually separate the stuff out by position and unit. Purpose, sure, why not leave it? Gobo, yeah, I'll leave that for now. The other thing, of course, I'm going to want is my frame size in here. Now, if you remember correctly, the frame size field that we set up before is actually a calculation field from our fixture types table. So I want to go in, and real quick, let's just look. Yeah, see, I don't have any frame sizes in here, again, because of that layout problem, or that import problem I had before. So real quick, I'm just going to go in, and I am going to go back over to my fixture types, and I'm going to put some frame sizes in. Let's start here. Oops, 6.25. 6.25. And just as a quick reminder, I recommend if you're starting out, don't put quote marks into your fields here, because it can mess up your scripts later. 7.5. Oops. Once again, trying to talk and type at the same time is proving hard for me. let's see, 10 degree is a 12 by 12 frame, and a 5 degree is a 14 by 14 frame. These don't have frames, and I don't know what the Aurora size is, but I'm just going to say like 13 by 14 or something for now. This doesn't have a frame, this doesn't have a frame, and this is probably what, something like 4 inches by 6 inches. Just guessing for now. Okay, go ahead and close that. And now when I look at this report, you can see those frame sizes are populated for every single thing. So that's pretty cool. Next thing I want to do is come in here and I'm going to add a part, another sub-summary. And I'm going to say a sub-summary when sorted by color. And because I want to do it a page per color, I'm going to do that page break before each occurrence thing that I did before. Printing above. And now I'm actually going to move this color and swatch fields that I have into that sub-summary. And make them nice and big. So maybe size 20. And of course, probably want to left align this so it's a little bit easier to see. Make my swatch nice and big. Now when I go back into browse mode, of course, that doesn't show up until I sort by color. Now, if you sort by color, that's great. It's going to sort by color, but I probably want to give it another sort too, because if you look at this, okay, 105, 104. So maybe I say sort by color and then by channel. Or you could say sort by color and then by instrument, or excuse me, then by position, then by unit number, whatever works for you. So, but now you see I've got my colors here, and then I've got, you know, separated out by size. Now this is really cool so far. Yeah, it's given me a you know, a nice easy say. Okay, I'm going to cut Lee 201, and I need to go 1, 2, 3, 4. How many of these do I need? How many of these do I need? Could definitely do that. But what we can actually do is add another sub-summary part to this that is sorted by frame size. And I don't want a page break on this. So now what I could do is I could move this frame size field up into here. Make this a little bit bigger, let's say 15. Maybe make that a little smaller. And now, if I add frame size to my sort, look at this. I now have here, or was it Lee 201 and 132? Here's all my 6 1/4 cuts. Here's all my 12 by 12 cuts. Here again, Lee 201, here's all my 6 1/4 cuts, here's all my 7 1/2 cuts. So right away, that's pretty cool. That allows us to break those things up a little bit more. But you're probably thinking, okay, but is there a way that I can figure out, or I could print exactly how many of each cut that I need on this report instead of having to go in and you know, count each line manually? Answer is absolutely there is. So this is going to be a new field type that we have not covered yet, and that's going to be a summary field. So I'm going to open up my database manager, make sure that I'm in my instruments table, and I'm going to make a new field. I'm going to call it cut count. The type is going to be a summary field, and when I create, I'm going to have a couple of options here to choose from. I'm going to choose a count of count of frame size, that it's a running count, and I want to restart that every time we're, I'm sorry, not by frame size, by color, and then only happen when we're sorted by instruments frame size. I believe that's right. I might have those backwards. We're going to find out in a second. So I'm creating a summary that's going to be a count of how many colors there are every time, and it's going to start a new count every time the frame size changes. I'm going to click OK. I'm going to click OK. And now I'm going to add that field here into my frame size layout object. Cut count. Say cut. And make that maybe left aligned. Right aligned. Let's see if that worked if I had it backwards. Nope, that's what it was supposed to be. Good. So now you see so basically what that says, again, let's look at it one more time just to make sure it's clear. It's going to count the total number of records. It's going to count the total number of color records, and it's going to restart that count every single time you sort them by frame size. So I can put that in this subsummary, and now I see Lee 201 and 132. I need 11 cuts at this size, and I need 5 cuts at this size. And of course, when I come into preview mode here, oh, okay, well, it started out, of course, with stuff that doesn't have a frame size, but you get the idea. Here we go. There's Lee 21, 7.5 by 7.5. Looks like we're missing a couple of swatches, but you get the idea there. Just like that. Now I could even come in here and I could make this a little bit easier to read. Maybe I could say, let's just put this all into one thing. Still want this sub-summary just in case I need it for something else. I think these are 18 maybe. Now I can come in here, and now I could have, skip over those again. See, I've got the same color swatch here with the size. So really, again, you lay it out however you want to lay it out. Hopefully you get the idea. So that summary field can be very, very powerful. And if you notice, there's all kinds of other things that you can summarize. You can do totals, you can do averages, you can do counts. So if you wanted to, you could even make a, you can make a load field that is a summary. You could do all kinds of stuff with that, but for this purpose, it works quite well. As we go through, we see it looks like we got just about everything we need. So I could make a show off of this. Great. So that's my color cut sheet. Last up, paperwork-wise, that we'll do today is going to be a Gobo sheet. So you could create the same kind of thing for a Gobo. Let's say you had a ton of Gobos in your show and you had different sizes. You could absolutely basically use this exact same kind of layout and same kind of logic that we've been using to create yourself a Gobo report. But for most of the shows I don't necessarily need that. I need a sheet that just says how many Gobos I need and where they need to go. So I am going to open up my layout manager again. I'm going to duplicate this. I'm going to call this Gobo count sheet. And instead of showing records from my instrument table, I'm actually going to show records from my Gobo table instead. There we go. So Gobo count sheet showing records from Gobos. Opening that up, and immediately closing my other one. Gobo count sheet. And don't really need any of this stuff. So I'm going to come in here. I'm going to delete both of these sub-summaries. Great. And now in this case, I'm going to do something we haven't done yet. And I want to print, for the purposes of this, I'm going to print a new page for every single individual Gobo that I have in my field, or Gobo type. So under layouts, under part setup, under my body, I'm going to say a page break before each occurrence of the body. And we don't need active and alternate for this because it's going to be individual pages. So now I'm just going to say this is, well, let me just delete these and start over. I'm going to drag my Gobo name field in. I'm going to drag my Gobo image field in. And we'll say quantity in use, quantity needed, quantity stock. So Andy, who's one of our watchers of these, after our last session, gave me a really great calculation to use for, I was trying to do it live in the moment and I didn't do the math correctly for what the calculation for this could be. So if you remember watching this, this quantity needed, we had some problems with this. So he came up with a calculation that allowed us to do essentially, like if you're not using it, I'm just going to copy paste it in from the email because that's going to make a whole lot more sense than me trying to explain it. So it's this. It's if the stock is greater than the ones we have, return 0. Otherwise, tell me stock minus quantity. So thank you, Andy, for that. And I will put that in the comments and on the GitHub as well for this video. I'm going to change that calculation over. And that looks good. Maybe make this a little bit narrower. Maybe put You know, I don't even need to say image because I know clearly what that is. And maybe we do something like this. This is total in use, total stock. And I'll show you why I'm moving these all over in 1 second. Needed. And if I go ahead and look at this, now you can see in preview mode, I've got a page per each sheet. Cool. I don't necessarily need this to be landscape though. Maybe I want this one to be portrait. So maybe I change my page layout over back to portrait again. And maybe we view our page margins again. And maybe I just come in and I center this stuff on the page here instead of the other way. Something like that. Let's say I wanted to have a report of exactly what lights all of these gobos are going into. So to do that, I'm going to use a portal. We used portals very early on when we talked about how we could see what work notes were associated with instruments. The portal tool is right here next to your tab tool. I'm going to click on it and I'm going to just drag a nice big portal right here. And I want to show records from instruments, and I want to sort those by, let's say, you could either do by channel, but in this case, maybe we do position and then unit number. Great. And then I want to see my channel number. I want to see my position number and probably my unit number. Just like that. Now when I go back into browse mode, and go into preview, you see I've got a list of every unit in my show that is using that particular gobo, and I can again print these onto individual sheets pretty easily. Looks a lot better in portrait orientation, and also super handy. Let's say you had a lot of these, I could show maybe 20 instead, or even maybe 30 instead. Oops. Go back into browse mode now. So now, you know, obviously they're not all there, but you get the idea. So you can easily create reports that have a list of all the lights that need that gobo. So wonderful. So we've created instrument schedule, channel hookup, color cuts, and gobo counts. Now we need to make a quick and easy way to actually generate that paperwork, because we don't want to have to come in here every single time and sort. Oops. That's the wrong thing. I don't want to have to come in here and do a manual sort every single time. I don't want to have to come in and make sure my page layout is set up properly, etc., etc., etc. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to create myself a script that will do most of that work for me. So opening up my scripts editor here. Excuse me. And under printing scripts, I'm going to create a new script. I'm going to call it print paperwork. I'm going to try not to run over time today. We might run a little bit over. So first things I'm going to do my normal housekeeping. So setting error capture on, freezing my window, and allowing user port on. Okay. And I'm going to, I could make individual scripts for each piece of this paperwork, but as you know, I like to try to make one script that can do multiple things. So later on, when we go to make this happen, we're going to use a script parameter from a button. So the first thing I'm going to do at the top of this is I'm going to get that script parameter and use it to determine what report I'm working in. So let's call this maybe report type. It's going to be a get script parameter. Okay. Excuse me. And now I can start making some if statements. So we say if report type equals instrument schedule, else if report type equals, what else do we do? Channel hookup, else if report type equals, what did we call it? We called it, I already forgot, color cut sheet, I think. Just double check that that's what we called it before I go further. Color cut sheet, yep. And else if report type equals gobo count, or gobo count. Probably should have wrote those down. Gobo count sheet. And again, capitalization doesn't matter, but it's nice to have it looking good. Okay, so hopefully you see where this is going. I've got a set of conditions here that it's checking. I'm going to add some white space in here. And we're going to start out here at the top with this if report type equals instrument schedule. So what's the first thing we need to do? We need to go to that layout. So we're going to go to layout and then choose printed reports instrument schedule. Perfect. And then what's the next thing we need to do? We need to go ahead and make sure that our print setup is set up exactly the way we want it. So we're going to specify a page size, it's US letter, landscape orientation. I'm going to turn the dialog off because I want it to do it automatically in the background. So I've done that. And now the next thing I'm going to do is go ahead and do my sorts. So I'm going to turn the dialog off because again I want it to do it all in the background without me having to do it. And now I'm going to specify that sort order that we came up with earlier for our instrument schedule. And if you remember correctly, that was first sorting by positions, sort order, and then by instruments unit number. Just like that. All we need to do, sort records. And then we're going to leave it as is, like that for now. Go ahead and we're going to copy paste this into this next little section. So if report type equals channel hookup, then we're going to go to channel hookup. And we're going to sort records by channel. Else if report type is color cut sheet, then we're going to want to go to layout, color cut sheet. Still landscape, don't need to change anything about that. And what was our sort here? Our sort was by color, and then by frame size, and then I'm going to do by channel after that. So color, then frame size, then channel. And then finally, again, just copy pasting these script steps. For Gobo count sheet, we're going to go to layout, Gobo count sheet, and change our print setup, remember, back to portrait, because this was our portrait orientation page and our landscape orientation page. And then sort records by really all we have to sort. Again, this is a Gobo thing, so we're going to sort by maybe Gobo name, or I guess you could sort by stock or however you really want to. I'm just going to do it by name for now. Okay. So that's kind of the stuff that is all dependent on what we're doing. Now we want to go in and actually make the PDF of those things. So I'm going to do enter preview mode. Leave a little white space there. And I'm going to say save records as PDF. I'm going to leave the dialog on because that will prompt the user or prompt me to say where I want to save that particular PDF. And then once that's done, I want to make sure I add a show all records because I want to make sure that next time I go into it, all of the records are available to me. If you didn't do this, and you know, it is kind of maybe good housekeeping to just kind of maybe even throw one of these up at the top of each one of these sections once you go into the layout. But because I know that I'm always going to go through this, I'm gonna have this show all records at the end. And then I want to make sure I go back into browse mode. And then go back to wherever I started. So there, 29 lines. I'm going to save that real quick. And let's kind of walk through it real quick before we test it. So we say, okay, we're going to get a script parameter that's going to be a report type. And then depending on what that report type is, it'll do any number of different things. It'll go to the layout, set up the page the way we want it to. This is also where, let's say, you know, we had that global variable in the header for each of our reports. We could set that for each thing inside of this if we wanted to. So it does whatever it needs to do there, then goes into preview mode, saves the records as a PDF, prompting you where you want the PDF to be. Then it'll show all the records, go back into browse mode, and go back to wherever you started from. And because our window is frozen, most of that will be pretty seamless to you, other than the pop-up for the save as records. So again, just making sure that anywhere other than this save as records, make sure all of your dialogues are turned off, or else it will just throw extra things to do along the way. Great. Okay, so let's add a button and let's make that happen. So I'm going to go back over here to my admin layout that we made early on. Before we made this little work notes assignees drop down with a little button to email them, I'm going to do the exact same thing for this paperwork printing. So I'm going to come into my layout editor here, and let's see, I'm probably, maybe I could make individual buttons for each piece of paperwork. The challenge with that is as you add more paperwork, now you've taken up a lot of real estate for a lot of different buttons. So instead, I maybe want to do this exact same thing. Maybe I want a drop down that shows me all of my different paperwork reports that I could print, and then a button that prints them. So to do that, I need to make another field here on my admin table, and I'm going to call this PDF. Let's call it PDF selection. Okay. And I'm going to put that PDF selection field here. Make it about the same size. Even copy paste this button down. Maybe change it to be a PDF instead. I'll deal with this in a second. And then I want to create a value list that is all of the names of the various pieces of paperwork that I have in my show. So you might be able to script this. I don't think it's worth the amount of time it would take to script creating this value list. I think it's easier just to come in and make it, and then every time you add a piece of paperwork, you just have to come in and remember to add it to the value list. So I'm going to say report types, and then custom values. So what do we have? We have instrument schedule. We have a channel hookup. Now it's important that I'm putting the exact same names into this value list as the things that I set up for that if logic in my script. So there, and then it was color cut sheet, Gobo count sheet. So they don't have to match my names, but make sure you use the same names for everything that you have in your show. Okay, so report types, and then of course I'm going to link that value list here. On my data manager, I'm going to link that value list as a drop-down list with values from report types, and I want to show it a little arrow there. So now when I come in here, I drop this down, okay, instrument schedule, lovely. And then the last thing I want to do is make this PDF button perform the right script. So this is going to be, what did we call it? Print paperwork. And then the script parameter is going to be whatever we have in our PDF selection box. So now you see why it was important that we use the same names for the value list as we did over here in this logic. So what's going to happen is I'm going to say, when I do this, I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to choose instrument schedule. Then when I click this button, it's going to run this script and pass along instrument schedule as my script parameter, which will then get turned into the report type, which then tells me to do this. Cool. Let's test it. Fingers crossed. Click the PDF button. Okay, it did. It asked me right away, where do I want this? And let's put this here. I'm going to call this instrument schedule test. Go, it did it. And it left me right back where I was. And moment of truth. All right, it looks like it did exactly what we asked it to do. Pretty great. And let's test it for each one. Channel hookup. I'm going to leave it as untitled for now. Good, channel hookup, that looks right. I'll delete it. Let's do our color cut sheet, PDF. Of course, now again, this is because there's no color attached to these, so I'll show you how we can fix that in a second. We scroll down a little bit, we see, okay, here's lead 21, cut 12, so it looks like the way it's supposed to. Good. I will come back in 1 second to show you how we can hide the ones that don't have a color frame associated with them. A color cut sheet, and then Gobo count, PDF that. And I'm going to just replace that existing one. There we go. So again, not the prettiest paperwork. You could spend some time in your own solution making it just as pretty as you want it to be, but you get the idea. So let's look at this script for a second, and let's figure out, let me create that color cut sheet again, and just look and see, okay, well, how could we make sure that things that don't have a frame size associated with them don't clog up my report like this? And that's pretty simple. So under color cut sheet, before I do my sorting, I'm going to add a perform find where we say no, is that what I want to do? I'm going to do a constrain found set where I say omit records where instruments frame size equals, and then just double quotes is basically saying equals empty, like that. Okay, I think that's what I want to do. Let me double check. So here's the old one again. I've got this at the top. Let's PDF that real quick. Did that not work? Stand by, please. I didn't have this in my notes to do, so I didn't test it, and I got to remember how to do this properly. Double equals, maybe it's supposed to be. Save, color cut sheet. I'll explain this in 1 second. Let me just see if this is going to work. It didn't work either. Let me try one more thing. Perform. I won't waste too much time with this if I can't get it working right away. It's hard, like when I'm not doing the stream, like I can do this with no problem. But as soon as I'm like in the moment on the stream, I'm like, oh crap, now my mind doesn't work. Frame size is entire field equals empty. I said omit, right? Yeah. Okay. Okay, well that didn't work. I will figure out what I'm doing wrong. I'm sure I'm missing something easy that's just not clicking in my mind. No, the script is it should be saved. We're gonna try it again. I shouldn't run the script unless it was saved. Let me try it again here. Okay, I will figure out why that wasn't working. I'm sure I'm missing something really dumb, but you get the idea. You can do a find where it's not empty, and make that work for you. I'm just getting something wrong in the syntax there, so I will research that and then I will put it in the comments of this video. So let's move on for now. Okay, so that's all good. Those are all working. Let's go ahead then and look at how we could do a script that will basically drop all of our paperwork into a folder. So let's say, I have a folder on my computer that is just called review that I have on my desktop. And what that allows me to do is just basically have a place where any paperwork that I need gets dropped to before I move it into, let's say, the Dropbox, the production Dropbox. So I'm just seeing some of these questions. So unfortunately on the finds, the reason that you can't do that, a find does not work with that, with a not logic. Sorry, I know I'm going back to this. I'm getting off track. Find records where instruments, frame size. So there's not a does not equal for this particular thing. Let me try. I didn't do it this way. Sorry, this will be the last test, I promise. And then I'll get into the actual stuff we're supposed to be doing. Where was that? That was under current session, untitled. Yeah, okay. I'll figure it out later. All right. So creating this Dropbox. So basically, I'm going to create a script that allows us to automatically drop all of our paperwork for our show into a folder on our system. So to do that, the first thing I need to do is be able to define that folder, define that file path. So I am going to make another field here in my admin table called export folder path. And I'm going to add that here over to my layout. And just to give you an example of this in real life, let me open up my program really quick. So under my printing setup here, you see I've got this path, and then I can actually turn on and off what I want to do. I'm not going to get into that today, but you should be able to figure that out pretty quickly once you see how the script works. But what I'm doing is I'm just going to copy paste this path in just to make it a little simpler. Now, as far as file paths, this is going to be slightly different from a Mac to a Windows environment. And the best thing I can do is to go in and to encourage you to go to the FileMaker documentation and look up to see how your file paths should be formatted for your system platform. So for mine, it's this FileMac prefix, and then just a normal file path going down to that review folder. I don't put a slash on the end. I like to add the slash into my script instead, but that's up to you, however you want to do it. So great, we've got that set up. Let's go ahead and make a new script. This is going to be export paperwork to folder. And you know what, actually, before I do that, I'm actually, instead of making a new one, I'm just going to copy paste my print script, right? Because it had a lot of the things that I already need in it. So I'm going to duplicate this. Why didn't this delete? Delete. And I'm going to call this export to folder. And now I'm just going to, again, as usual, give myself some white space. And that way I have all these old things here. I can drag things up as I need them. Okay, so the first thing I don't need a script parameter anymore because this is just going to do everything for me. But I do need to set a couple of variables. So I'm going to say set variable. And the first one is going to be, let's say folder path. And all that is going to be my export folder path field. The reason I put it as a variable is just because it's easier to read later on in the script. So I'm going to set that up, folder path. And then I'm going to set a file extension. So set file extension. And that is going to just be quotes.pdf quotes. Good. And now I'm going to go into preview mode, and I can start bringing some of these things up to the top. So I don't need this if-then statements anymore because I'm doing everything, right? Instead, I just want these individual little sets of data. I'm going to separate them by a couple of spaces each. That. And we'll leave these down at the bottom. Actually, no, I do want to put a show all records. I'll get to that in a second. So now I need a couple more variables. Before I can export these as PDFs automatically, I have to use some of this information that I had, the folder path, the extension, and the context of what layout I'm on to actually create an entire file name and file path. So I'm going to sort the records, and then I am going to do setting a file name. So let's say set file name over to be instrument schedule. Here it would be set file name to be channel hookup. Setting here file name to be color cut sheet, and then setting up a file name here for Gobo count sheet. Okay, and then I'm going to pop that file name, file extension, and folder path together. So I'm going to do a set of those, and again, once you get this initial one done, then you're pretty much good to go. So I like to say folder path is just the folder, then the file path is the direct path to the file itself. So we're going to specify this, and it's going to be our folder path slash, and I'm just going to put the slashes in there for now and then go back in and fix them in a second. File name slash file, oops, $, file extension. Now, because these slashes are text, we have to actually put them in quotes. And then we need to join all those things together with ampersands. So we're looking at folder path and a slash, and file name and a slash, and file extension. Now, you could put some of those slashes into your earlier variables, so you could do that if you want to, but for troubleshooting purposes, I like to try to keep it as separate as possible, so that all happens at the last minute here. So set variable file path. And because this little variable is kind of agnostic to what we're working with, because we're setting these other things up, I can now just come in here and copy paste this into each one of these sets and not have to worry about what it's doing. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is I am going to do a export as PDF, save records as PDF. I'm going to turn the dialog off, and I'm going to specify this time that I want it to be created at the file path. So just like that, dialog off, file path is the path and name of the file that I want. And again, I can copy paste this right on down. And because I'm working in the same table, I just want to be safe. I'm going to add a show all records at the bottom of each one of these. Just like that. And at the very end, we go back into browse mode and to the original layout. Okay, so let's look at that whole thing real quick. It's basically going to go through. It's going to do my instrument schedule. It's going to export the PDF. It's going to do my channel hookup. It's going to export the PDF. It's going to do the color cut sheet, export the PDF, so on and so forth. So let's save that. And I'm going to leave my review folder here. Just ignore this logo.jpg. That was from another file that I was working on that I can't delete. And now when I click play, let's fingers crossed that it works. And it didn't. Let's figure out why it didn't. Okay. Script editor. Try it one more time. Okay, it's not working for some reason. So let me compare to my working one here. Okay, so we'll use the debugger to figure out why this isn't working. Tools, data viewer, / before file extension looks strange. Ah, you're absolutely right. Thank you for that. So Lee just pointed out we don't need a / before the file extension, of course, because it's a file extension. So I'm just going to delete that from that last variable. So basically what it was trying to do was trying to put in a / between the name and the extension, which we don't actually need. And if I look over here to my left at my demo script, of course, that is how it is over there. So again, I'm just changing that, that file path to be folder path / file name and file extension without anything in between, because the extension contains that period. Thank you, Lee. He's my go-to troubleshooter on this on these streams. Okay, now when I click play, hey, there we go. Instrument schedule, channel hookup, color cut sheet, Gobo count sheet. They all come in, and all looks good. Lovely. Lovely, lovely, lovely. Okay, so that works out really well. I know we're running out of time, but I want to show you two more things. So this is really cool, but it doesn't really give us a lot of information about, just the title is just instrument schedule. What if I wanted to have, if I had a revision tracking system, for example, like a you know, a letter or a number or maybe a show name. What if I wanted to put those things into these fields or into these titles? I could absolutely do that. I'm going to come in here and I'm actually going to set those things up on my admin screen. So I'm going to say show name, and we'll say paperwork revision. Add those to this layout. Show name, paperwork revision. And what show should we? This is the best show. And let's say it's revision A. Let's say A01 prelim, so you see letters and numbers. Okay. So now what I can do inside of this script is I could start naming my files using those things. So maybe instead of setting file name value instrument schedule, I could say file name and the value could be instrument schedule, adding a space, and then maybe and show name, and then and space and paperwork revision. And maybe we do a space and a hyphen. Maybe that makes a little bit more sense. Something like that. And I'm just going to copy paste the back half of this and put it here on all my file names. And of course, you could make this second part be another variable up there to make it a little cleaner. That's perfectly fine too. Great. Save that. And now when I click play, well, that's interesting. All right, Mike, what did we do wrong? Promise you all I know what I'm doing. What am I doing wrong? File name. Oh, okay. I see what's happening. So this is what's happening. Because the script has already gone to that layout, I can't get the names of these fields because those fields don't show up on those individual layouts. So what I need to do is actually set that as a variable before I even go to those layouts. So I'm going to undo a little bit here. Looks like I can't. That's fine. So I'm going to set up another thing here. Well, FileMaker appears to be frozen on me. Oh, what an afternoon, everyone. Let me sorry about this. Let me reopen FileMaker for a second. We are on session 2.3. Go back to my admin screen. Great. Okay. So again, because these fields didn't exist on the layout that we were on, it was not able to fill them in. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to put another variable at the top of our script, and we're just going to maybe call this show info. And then this will be this little bit right here, admin and show name, admin paperwork revision. Show info, like that. So it's show name and space hyphen space paperwork revision. And then what I'll do down here in the file name is I'll do instrument schedule plus, and show info. And you could even move this, and actually that's going to be a better way to do it. For this show info, we should put this preceding space hyphen space here, and then an and then it just makes it look a little bit cleaner here. So we can just say instrument schedule and show info. Great. So hopefully that made sense. Sorry, I didn't make that a little clearer from the beginning. And show info. what I would suggest you do is, as you're starting to figure these calculations out, figure out if you want to have the spaces, you know, in the last part of the calculation, or if you want them in the beginning. Typically, I try to make them happen in the beginning whenever I can, just because it makes a little more sense. Okay, so we are in current session. Let me just delete all of this paperwork that we're not using. Oh, sorry, that's going into the review folder. Let me delete this paperwork we're not using. Now, when I run this script, there we go. Now it's showing up. Instrument schedule, the best show, AO1 prelim. So it can become kind of a long file name. It can, you know, become as long as you want it to be. And of course, now that we have that information here, you could pass that information along, maybe over to that global variable that we set up before. So what was the name of that variable? It was print title. Just going to copy that. So maybe here on this we do another variable, and we call this, we reset that global of print title, and we make this something like show info. Now I realize that's going to have the slash and stuff like that in it, but you get the idea, just as a sample here. Now, when you run this script, it will overwrite anything with the same name automatically. Jesus. Okay. No, it's a global mic, not a local. Try it one more time. There we go. Now it showed up there. So now there's an argument for maybe why you don't put that on there. It really depends on how you're going to use the data later on. So you get the idea of what you can do with that. Pretty powerful stuff. I'll delete it for now. Great. The other thing that I want to show you is how we could actually separate these pieces of paperwork into folders based on that revision title. So this is a pretty simple change. All I need to do here is in my folder path, I'm going to add to the end of this folder path a slash and then the admin paperwork revision. And I'm just going to separate that slash with quotes and give it a little bit of an ampersand moment here. So now basically I'm saying that my folder path is now export folder and paperwork revision. And then on these save records as PDF, you see at the end here, there's a little option that says create folders. I'm going to turn that on. And so what that will do is if it doesn't have a folder, it will automatically create that folder for me. So let's delete those. Let's run this script. Look, now it's created an AO1 prelim folder for me. And there's the paperwork slowly coming in. And then let's say I come in here and I change this to, let's say, final revision, right? And I run this script again. Now it's made me a final revision folder. So that can be super helpful if you do want to export your paperwork directly to a Dropbox. So let's say you have a production Dropbox that all this paperwork goes into. All you got to do is update your revision title here, and it's automatically going to create that folder for you. And you could go even further with that if you wanted to. You could have multiple folders nested inside of each other, and it will automatically create them. So pretty cool stuff. Okay, so I apologize for those errors. There's one more thing I want to show you. I know we have ran a couple minutes over, but I promise you this one will be quick. This is the thing I promised you last class, and that was a script. Let me open up my key here. And that was a script that will allow us to automatically, change Gobo names in our instrument records based on the change that we make on our Gobo report. So I'm going to come in here to my Gobo layout. So essentially what I'm saying is, like, if I were to come in here and change this to GAM 201, I want it to go in and then update to GAM 201 on every instrument record that had that. 370, whoops. So let's create that script very quickly here. It's going to be a new script, and we're going to call this name changer. I'm only going to create it for Gobos, but you can quickly figure out how you could use this for other things too. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set a variable. And that variable is going to be called event. And that's going to be a get, you guessed it, script parameter. I'm going to say if event equals entry, else if event equals exit. Can't type today either. So I've got if event is entry, else if event equals exit. I'm going to give myself some space to work here. Then I'm going to say set variable. This is going to be a global variable to old name. Value is going to be Gobo name. Okay. And that's all that's going to happen on an entry. And this entry exit is going to correspond later on to those script triggers we set up. So an entry trigger is going to happen when we click in, and an exit trigger is going to happen when we click out. So now we say if it's an exit, then instead we're going to set another variable, and that's going to be a local variable of new name, and that'll be again Gobo name. And then now we want to check those things against each other. So we're going to say if new Gobo, or excuse me, new name does not equal global old name. And the reason we use a global for that old name is because the script has to run twice. It has to run once when we go in and once when we go out. So a local variable is only used locally on the current script. So after it's ran once, that variable goes away. So we want to make sure it persists for us. So we're saying if the new name does not equal the old name, show a custom dialog. And then we'll say, do you want to change all instances of old name to new name, question mark. And then of course we gotta parse this out a little bit better. So there's quotes there, quotes here, and then ampersand, ampersand, ampersand. I like to, like I said, type it all out and then go back in and parse it out the right way later. I'll leave that on the screen for a second so everybody can see it or can pause later on for it. Great. Oh. And, oh, I forgot. This is also should have waited to pause. Got to add that question mark as its own text object there. Okay. So now it'll ask me, and then we notice, okay, I'm going to say maybe button 1 is yes, button 2 is no. And I only care about what happens if I click yes. So make sure that button 1 has the data committed. And then we'll do one more if. Say if get last message choice equals 1. Then we are going to go to layout. And that's going to be my instrument layout. We're going to perform find request, and we're going to find anything where the Gobo name equals old name. Gobo name equals old name. Perform find. And now we're going to loop through to change all of those records. So I'm going to say loop, give myself some space to work. I'm going to just add an exit condition here just in case something weird happens. And I'm going to make it get found count equals 0. So just in case it doesn't find any, which should never be a thing, because in theory, like this, the Gobo name is going to be there from your instrument records already. But just in case it isn't, I'm going to add that exit loop if just as a little error catcher. And then I'm going to say set field. And the field name is going to be instruments, Gobo, and I want to set it to new name. Make sure I did this right. Yeah, old name. Set field to new name, and then go to record next, exit after last on. So what that loop is going to do is you're going to find all of those records. It's going to then loop through and set that field, and after it gets to the last one, it'll pop out of the loop. Now we want to say go to layout, original layout. And let's get rid of some of this white space now because we don't need it. Oops. And now the only other thing I want to do, just to not clutter up my data viewer at all, is I want to reset this variable, or want to clear this variable. So I'm going to put that after this. So if new name does not equal old name, then I'm going to go ahead and do it. Is that where I want to do it? If new name, yeah, I want to do it here. I'm going to set variable old name to nothing. Is that definitely where I want it? If event is exit. Actually, no, I can move it down one more, I believe. Yes. So that way, if it is equal, it'll skip over this and set the variable. Be all set. Okay. So I'm going to save that. And now all I need to do is come in here to my Gobo layout. I'm going to right-click on Gobo name, and I'm going to set up some script triggers. Of course, we already set up this one to be exit before. I'm going to remove that for now. My personal preference, again, is to have that happen on a separate button or on its own script. So I'm not going to make that a script trigger. I'm just going to change this over to be name changer with the event, with the script parameter being exit. And then on object enter, I'm going to perform that exact same script with script parameter entry. That's what I made it, right? It was entry, not enter. Yeah, entry. Now we're good to go. So just to show you here, so there's a GAM 370. Let's look at our instrument records real quick and make sure that that is what's showing up on our instrument records. Data entry instruments. And there's a GAM 370 right there. There's all the lights that use GAM 370. Looks like a decent amount of them, 18 of them to be, or 16 of them to be exact. So now what I want to do is I'm going to open up my data viewer so you can see this happen live. When I click into this field, watch what happens. Bloop, old name, GAM 370. Click out of that field, it goes away because I didn't change anything. But if I come in here and I click in and I change this to GAM, let's say 201, and I click out of the field, do you want to change all instances of GAM 370 to GAM 201? Yes. Continue. What did I do wrong? Crap. Stand by, please. Jeez. What a rough day I'm having here, everybody. Okay, so GAM 370, there's the picture. Let me just double check my find here. Find records where Gobo name equals old name. That should be correct. Forgot my error capture at the top there. And a freeze, of course. Let's try this one more time. GAM 201. Yes. Huh. Okay. All right, so let's debug it together, kind of live here. We're doing it live. So data viewer, good. Open up my script here, and let's debug this script. So now when I click out of that field, before I debug it, I'm going to change it back to GAM 370. say no. Okay, good. So now I'm going to click in. Old name was GAM370. Open up my debugger. And now when I click out, it's going to start running that script. So let's just kind of work our way through here. Window, get script parameter. Event was exit. If event entry, which is not the case. If event exit, new name. God, stupid mic. I'm sorry, everybody. I forgot to actually change the name. 201. Now, okay, doing it for real this time. Now this is the real live version now. Okay, so I'm going to change this to GAM 201. I'm going to click out of it. And I'm going to say parameters exit, good. If exit, set the new name to be GAM 201. If new name does not equal old name, show dialog. Yes, I want to change them. Go to layout, performing a find, and it didn't find any. So it's something wrong with my find here. Why am I having problems with find today? I figured it out. So I was trying to search on the Gobos table and not the instruments table. It should be instruments Gobo equals old name, not Gobos equals old name. Guarantee you that was what the problem was. And now we are back in business. So I'm just going to change this back to GAM 370 and not do anything because it was already like that. So you see it's got 16 in use already here. There's a GAM 370 on channel 294. I'm going to change this over to GAM 201, change them all. Hey, it did it, everybody. Wonderful. And then, of course, the image didn't change, so I could manually come in here and change the image if I wanted to. Or maybe I pop that on the end of my script. Maybe I do a perform script. Where was it? Search server for Gobo image. Maybe I do that like that instead. So now it doesn't do it on the front end, but it can do it on the back end. So now if I change GAM, maybe I change these to GAM 221. Do I want to change all? Yes. Changed them all and went and got the new image. Great. Okay, everybody. So I'm sorry there were so many problems today. That's it for new content. Hopefully you're able to bear with me through that and some stuff made sense. That's going to wrap up today. I don't have any other sessions in the immediate future scheduled. I've got some stuff going on next week, but I probably will pick up the week after. I might be able to do something towards the end of next week, but it might be that second week of August before I can get back to it again. And we're just going to keep expanding on this. We're going to keep making this a little bit smarter. I would encourage you in the meantime to spend some time really working with your layouts, with your stuff like that, kind of get them formatted the way you want them to look. And then we'll come back together soon. I will, like I said, I will figure out what was wrong with that color sorting thing earlier, or excuse me, the color find thing earlier. I'm sure it was something stupid that I was just missing. Let's see, anything else? If there's any other questions, go ahead and throw them in the chat. I'll hang out for, let's say, 2 or 3 more minutes. Otherwise, I will see you all next time. Lee had a good idea there. Let me try that for, where were we at? We were on, go back to our admin layout. And his idea is to do, change the frame size, the finding for the frame size there to be a greater than. And I think that could actually work quite well. where are we at? That's under color cut sheet. Let's do a find where we say omit records where frame size, actually we could probably say is equals 0, really, because since the frame size, it could be numbers. Let's see if that works first. It might work, might not work. That didn't work. I don't know. I'll figure it out and I'll post the solution. I just need to go look and see what I have in my solution. Great. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and sign off for the day. I will see you all again sometime very soon. Hope everybody has a safe weekend, and thanks a lot.